to do. Hetty was the self-appointed news-bearer of the family. Wild horses could not prevent her from being the first to tell whatever it was that happened. Tom and Caddie and Warren finished undressing, tied their clothes into tight bundles, and stepped out into the river. The water was low after a long, hot summer, but still it looked cold and deep. Hetty shuddered. She had started to undo one shoe, but now she quickly tied it up again. She had made up her mind. She turned around and flew across the fields to tell Mother. Tom knew from experience that he could just keep his chin above water and touch bottom with his toes across the deep part of the river. It would have been over Caddie's and Warren's heads, but if they held on to Tom and kept their feet paddling, they could just keep their heads above water. They had done it before. Tom went first with his bundle of clothes balanced on his head. Caddie came next, clutching Tom's shoulder with one hand and holding her bundle of clothes on top of her head with the other. Warren clung to Caddie's shoulder in the same manner, balancing his own clothes with his free hand. They moved slowly and carefully. If Tom lost his footing or fell, they would all go down together and be swept away by the current toward the village below. But the other two had every confidence in Tom, and Tom had not the slightest reason to doubt himself. They looked like three beavers moving silently across the current, three heads with three bundles and a little wake of ripples trailing out behind them. Last of all came Nero, the farm dog, paddling faithfully behind them. But Hetty was already out of sight. Presently there was solid river bed beneath their feet again. The three children scrambled out on the other side, shook themselves as Nero did, and pulled on their dry, wrinkled clothing. "Hurry up, Caddie," called Tom. "You're always the last to dress." "So would you be too, Tom, if you had so many buttons," protested Caddie. She came out of the bushes, struggling with the back of her blue denim dress. Relenting, Tom turned his superior intelligence to the mean task of buttoning her up the back. "I wish Mother'd let me wear boys' clothes," she complained. "Huh," said Warren. "She thinks you're tomboy enough already." "But they're so much quicker," said Caddie regretfully. Now that they were dressed, they sped along the river bank in the direction of the smoke. Several Indian canoes were drawn up on shore in the shelter of a little cove, and beyond them, in a clearing, the Indians moved to and fro about a fire. Propped on two logs was the crude framework of a canoe which was already partly covered with birch bark. The smell of birch smoke and hot pitch filled the air. Caddie lifted her head and sniffed. It was perfume to her, as sweet as the perfume of the clover fields. Nero sniffed too, and growled low in his throat. The three children stopped at the edge of the clearing and watched. Even friendly Indians commanded fear and respect in those days. A lean dog with a wolfish look came forward barking. He and Nero circled about each other, little ridges of bristling hair along their spines, their tails wagging suspiciously. Suddenly, the Indian dog left Nero and came toward Caddie. "Look," said Caddie, "it's Indian John's dog." The dog's tail began to wag in a friendlier manner, and Caddie reached out and patted his head. By this time, the Indians had noticed the children. They spoke among themselves and pointed. Some of them left their work and came forward. In all the 7 years since the Woodlawns had come from Boston to live in the big house on the prairie, the Indians had never got used to seeing them. White men and their children they had seen often enough, but never such as these, who wore, above their pale faces, hair the color of flame and sunset. During the first year that the children spent in Wisconsin, the Indians had come from all the country around to look at them. They had come in groups, crowding into Mrs. Woodlawn's kitchen in their silent moccasins,